Hey everyone, welcome to our first commentary video. In this video, we'll be talking about the dark side of the statistics community and how there is more to this small niche than it may seem at first. The statistics community in this video refers to a collection of individuals on YouTube, Discord, and Twitter who track and visualize fluctuations in YouTube subscriber counts or similar statistics in the form of videos, shorts, streams, in which subscriber counters or other charts visualize the data. Did not study the statistics as in math statistics. We're not mathematicians here, most of us at least. So be sure to not be confused. This is a very small subculture founded around 2018 to 2019 with the PewDiePie vs. T-Series subscriber battle. This is the inciting event that started the community. It really didn't exist at all before then at all. Like, it just didn't exist. And people would stream that subscriber race. That's really the genesis of this community. And from there, people would begin looking at other statistics, which brings us to today. In large part, people do make a lot of statistics about the fastest growing channels, mainly Mr. Beast, and they do milk them quite a bit in this community. And we do have quite a bit of spam here, unfortunately, short spam and low effort videos, but we also have high effort videos as well. And in terms of things you might see Social Blade, View Stats, Mixerno Space, and even people outside the community can see these. And like, you've probably known these before, even if you're new to this channel, this community, you've probably seen those before. In terms of the creators themselves, and not the audience, because who knows about the audience, but in terms of the creators, they're overwhelmingly male. I think they're all biologically male. I don't know a single one who isn't. And there's a large LGBTQ plus presence here. Many community members are between 10 and 22. This is a rough estimate, but most of them are in or near adolescence, and you can tell that based on their behavior. Again, some of them can be quite mature, but many of them not so much. In fact, very not so much. And maturity is a big issue, as we'll see in many ways. Notable creators you might stumble upon, or if you're in the community a lot, you probably like these people quite a bit, include YT Battles, Subscriber Wars, Kotsky, MDM, Statsable, and Sazabi. These channels and others make up the lighter surface level side, and the side that does look quite good. It makes the community look good on the surface. But while they may be nice, this video is going to focus on everything under the surface. There's much less more than it may seem, and in my opinion, more than on the light side, surface level. Even for such a small subculture, which compared to other subcultures barely exists, but it does exist, and in many ways, not in a good way. We'll be reviewing quite a long list of individuals and groups that represent degenerate parts of this subculture, engage in degenerate actions over the years. In order, it'll be chronologically, this video will be, and these vices range wildly, everywhere from casual immaturity to borderline illegal things. But for legal purposes, this is just based on evidence and speculation. We're not making any formal accusations here. But this is for public best knowledge. No celebrities are implicated, even though many people in this community do use common nouns, i.e. solar. Like, we're not talking about solar radiation. We're talking about a person in this community who runs things, just so no one's confused who may not be familiar with these people. So don't worry, and now let's commence the video. We'll start off way back in 2021 when there was a series of hackings that occurred in the community, mainly by an individual known as Theo Likey. Theo Likey was a prominent hacker in the statistics community around 2021 to 2022, perhaps a bit later, but that's the main time he was active. Little can be said about his origin, as he did a variety of content. It seems kind of random stuff, really. Most of his channels are no longer up on YouTube, except for a few. You can see if you can find them yourself. But early on, Theo developed a grievance towards the YouTube Battles Discord server, the server of the large creator YouTube Battles, or YT Battles for short. And we're not exactly sure how it originated. You could ask them. Probably through some light teasing Theo took too seriously, and he developed a pretty heavy grudge against the server, and he really wanted to raid it. He wanted to nuke it. Discord, you raid it with spam, deleting messages, pinging everyone, stuff like that. That constitutes a raid. And he was successful in some instances, although the server is still around and fully functional today. Theo also went by alias Lily, a Lily Cat, and apparently had advanced coding capabilities, although the degree to which is sometimes questioned, but good enough at coding to generate thousands of custom bots on Discord servers and flood these servers. For instance, Midu comparison server has thousands of bots still in it 5 years later to this day that Theo was able to raid with. And they're very hard to kick once they're in, so the main thing is you try to prevent them through a phone verification and stuff like that, which is what the YT Battle server did and was mostly spared. But Theo wasn't limited to Discord, however, and he began to target YouTube channels as well. And he exploited, really, the young innocence of this creator demographic. And he would go after what's called a stream key, which is a password that should be kept secret, but of course that's not what happened here. It's used to connect a YouTube Studio to a streaming service so you stream on your channel. At least that's one method, and that's what a lot of people used. You can also use it to kind of share streams or access streams if you want to collaborate for streams. That's what people did. And that's kind of the guise that Theo worked under. He would convert into YouTuber. Many of these YouTubers, they were younger then than they were now, obviously. And in many cases, he was successful in attaining their stream key. He would attain their trust. And then quickly, he would, instead of helping the channel grow, which is what he said he would do, he would just stream inappropriate content. And you know what that means, right? I don't need to elaborate further. It was inappropriate enough, let's just say. The channels got terminated pretty quickly after he started those inappropriate streams. And supposedly he terminated over 100 channels this way. Well, I should say terminated. I mean, YouTube terminated, but he essentially got them terminated by manipulating them and streaming inappropriate things on their channel. That 100 number may be hyperbole, but the point is, he did this quite a bit. It was kind of like an outbreak of sorts. It was around the same time, so it was a pretty dark time in the community's history. Perhaps you might know some channels that their first channels were terminated by Theo, such as Yabs or YouTube Alternate Battles. First channel way back in 2021, and Graphify now Trackerify's first 1 or 2 channels, I don't remember exactly, but at least one of them that would lead to subsequent terminations based on YouTube assuming Graphify was ban-evading when really the first channel was terminated as a result of Theo's actions. Now again, he was especially successful because the community is so young on average, allowing them to be more susceptible to verbal manipulation, which is what happened. Theo was decently good at manipulation. Again, if you're a pretty smart person, you probably wouldn't fall for it, but some people are pretty trusting in this community, as they were back then, and that's how this happened. Then there was kind of a hiatus for a time until February of 2024, when a Discord user named Alpor, who we don't know who owns the account, but this user hacked Kajnstats' Discord account. Kajnstats being a medium to smallish creator in the niche. He's known for his Bruh Moments series and other things. I think he also does meteorology. That's chill. But the idea is, we don't know how he hacked it, but somehow he came into control of it. Some people thought it was Kajn trolling at the time. It pretty clearly wasn't, because he was saying the M-word and other racist stuff. And I think he was trying to get the account banned, which it did happen in large part. And after that happened, Kajn ended up getting his account back. Supposedly, a person who owns Alpor is from Texas and is a racist guy. I mean, that kind of makes sense. It might be Theo. We don't know, but the behavior seems pretty similar. As of today, Theo's not been seen in many years, although some people float a lot of rumors, especially in the YT Battle server. Some people say he's been put in jail for real-life crimes. Some say he's still in the community, but keeping a low profile. Either way, the days of determination seem to be over, at least for now. And it goes to show that even in the small community, really bad things like this can still happen, and happen quickly, for that matter. So you always need to be careful. Now moving on to 2022. The United Server of Statistics, which was founded in 2022 summer, maybe 2021, but I think it was 2022. It was USOS for short, USOS, United Server of Statistics. It was a Discord server, mainly active in 2023, or late 2022. It was run by a user called Gypstats, who you've probably seen his YouTube channel if you're active in this community. He's a pretty decently sized creator, known for custom-coded high-quality visualizations. Although he's taken a hiatus lately, he has made quite a few high-quality videos. And the idea of the server was to try to unite every server in the niche. That might sound crazy, but that was the goal, and he attempted this multiple times. He would do this by reaching out and convincing other creators to merge with him. Merging meant they would pretty much close down their own server and advertise his. In exchange, you would get roles, and they'd be able to ping your audience, but from within JIP server. So you can kind of see how they both kind of operate from the same server rather than separate servers. That's the premise of merging. Although really, since JIP was still above the main permissions, it was JIP getting most of the benefits there. So merging is kind of a pyramid scheme, and it does make sense why this community did it and not other communities. It's quite unique to this community since this community is so obsessed with numbers, including statistics of Discord servers. Get this. They're obsessed over member count, over experience points that keep track of like how active you are, shortened for XP, and so on. This is common here. And JIP would often try unsuccessfully to coerce others to merge. Many said no, repeatedly. And it was quite pathetic, especially early on. Although despite this, JIP was able to grow the server to around 320 members by summer of 2023 and get at least 8 mergers at any one given time, although people came and went quickly. However, this JIP himself and other people would often say very inappropriate things on these servers, aside from the whole pressuring to merge stuff. And many of these members were quite young. Many of them were children. Some were even under 13, which is against Discord terms of service, but unless you openly say it, Discord doesn't really know, which should help a lot of people get away with it. And JIP himself would actually do the most of it. He would say very weird things, so I'm going to have to censor, but if you're in this community, you know what I'm talking about. And you get the picture of how JIP is a metaphor of everything wrong with USOS. Obviously, with the owner acting this way, the entire server followed, and he really encouraged that behavior, and you get the picture. And ever since then, USOS is notorious for its poor moderation, its immaturity, and members, including staff, being very corrupt and encouraging arguments and saying immature things. As you see, JIP said some really suspicious things. USOS is cited as what not to do when running a server, and if you are compared to USOS, that's a bad thing. You want to avoid that. The reputation of the server was on a decline in the summer of 2023, so in mid-September 2023, JIP Stats not so quietly closed down the server, and he instantly made a new server with the same premise, but this time it was master planned, and the role permissions were less of a mess, so he kind of planned it out, whereas USOS was kind of scrapped together along the way. And yes, in recent months, JIP Stats has become less active. He hasn't uploaded in 8 months, which is unfortunate because the content was quite good, but regardless, he seems to have become more mature, especially since more recent incidents, which we'll get into. In past activities with USOS and associated mature behavior is emblematic of how the statistics community operates on Discord. This is unfortunately not too uncommon. There's only a handful of servers that are not like this. And while YouTube statistics is not the only niche to be home to stuff like this, it is unique for its coercive merging attempts to the obsession over member counts, and JIP's really pyramid scheme with how it grew his server. Now let's move on to two pretty well-known creators, IvanIO and Milrus. Milrus also runs Keys and Stats, but we'll be focusing on the big channel since that's what people know him for. Two large and influential statistic creators. IvanIO has over 14,000 subscribers to date, and a pretty big and really strong following, to be honest. And Milrus has actually less of a following, but more subscribers, if that makes sense. Since Milrus is less active, he is less of a committed following, whereas IvanIO has a lot of super fans, if you get the picture. He's perhaps one of the most inspirational figures for smaller statistics creators. IvanIO is known for high-quality long-form videos, very high quality, but also longer time in between uploads. And Milrus, of course, you know him. He's known for spamming Mr. Beast in Ohio meme short videos, which is how he got nearly 3 million subscribers. Of the two, IvanIO is definitely more influential and probably more troublesome as well, even though he's mostly, for the most part, publicly adored. If you look into what these two creators actually think behind the scenes, it's pretty disturbing. IvanIO in 2024 and early 2025 was embroiled in a series of controversies over actions he'd taken and some really hateful opinions, which he argued with pretty much the entire online community with. Both IvanIO and Milrus let's just say they are still very pro-Russia in the Russia-Ukraine war. They're unapologetic, and they support far-right autocratic policies, and they really hate minorities for some reason. Like, any politics aside, like, their beliefs are pretty bigoted. And they say these things not to any policy, but because, yeah, they perceive things being restrictive towards minorities, and as you see here in the screenshots, IvanIO really hates the LGBTQ plus community. He always mentions how they're, like, outlawed in Russia or something, as if that's significant. I mean, it is significant in a bad way, but he's saying that to show that he's really, really bigoted. And people call him outfitters too. But it's not just that, it's also like their actual like literal legal power. IvanIO has abused copyright powers. In late 2024, IvanIO issued, I think it was 2 copyright strikes against JipStat's commentary videos, which are high quality, and I suggest you watch them because they're pretty good. But Jip used like a 5-second clip of one of IvanIO's videos to make a point or something, and IvanIO was able to use that and claim that section in order to like deliver a copyright like takedown request or whatever, even though JipStat's videos clearly fell under fair use. Later, he did a similar thing against LeanStats video. LeanStats video was a FSCW, or a fake subscriber count world, visualizing an alternate decline of IvanIO, which is fitting because that happened at the time of the drama. He threatened statistics commentator HistoryX, or His2Rex, whatever his name is, although he did not take any action there. He's just all talk. And his own community, even though it's very committed, they did turn against him, and he lost an API of 100 subscribers out of like 12,000 at the time, which is pretty significant because you probably had like 100 superfans out of that many. And Jip would receive a boost from this controversy, as you see in the screenshot, and would later get his videos back up. And IvanIO and Jip would go back and forth in community posts. IvanIO, of course, is unapologetic. He always defended his actions, especially when it was wrong. But he knew it was wrong in the end, and he deleted his community posts. Whereas Jip stats are still up. So if you want to scroll way down and look at them from 1.5 years ago, they're still up. They're completely up, whereas Ivan's are gone. And today, Ivan just pretends it doesn't happen. He's pretended it's never happened. He never mentions it, even though he's still active on Discord. He's still active on community posts, not in videos. He's not uploaded in a year and a half. And IvanIO has used a mental health shield. We know he probably has mental health issues. We wish him well, but unfortunately, he uses to victimize himself quite a bit. Unsuccessfully, but still. As an example, his server that existed from March to August 2024, his server was called IvanIO Discordia. It was quite active. It had a couple 100,000 messages and 350 members, which for this niche is pretty big, which gives you the picture of how small this community really is. It was like 350 is a big server. And it quickly became a hot mess. It was frequently compared to the USOS. Moderators were very biased. They engaged in arguments. They didn't stop them. And towards the end, IvanIO had a mental decline, and he publicly announced, pinging everyone on the server, stating that shutdown was inevitable, and he began a countdown to 6 p.m. when he said, or he heavily implied, he would delete the server. And that's exactly what he did at like 6:03, 6:04 p.m. And it was victimizing the entire time, even though people were clearly trying to help him. That's just what he did. And again, today he doesn't address these at all. He pretends it never happened. And he's even been expressing more optimism on his YouTube community posts. So we hope he kind of learns from these things, albeit quietly. I mean, I guess he probably should apologize, but I don't think he's going to. We just hope he's changed his ways for good, and that he continues this course correction he's seemingly on. Now let's move on to the successor server of USOS, Statistics Assembly. You probably notice, if you're in Statistics Discord at all, you know what Statistics Assembly is, unless you joined very recently. It's a successor server to United Server Statistics. The second so-called merging server is owned by JipStats and active from September 2023 to September 2025 for 2 years. It accumulated over 670 members, which is a nice number, 678 to be exact, but let's round down for funnies. By the time of its eventual archiving, it had that many. It had as many as 1.07 million messages sent. That's, again, for this niche, that's a lot. I think even in general, that's a pretty good amount for a server that's not connected to a brand. But regardless, employed a similar tactic to USOS to much greater success. I think it had over a dozen, at least 12, 13, 14. I think that's about how many mergers it had. It had obviously about twice as many members as USOS at the peak, and it was much more active, although a lot of this activity was XP farming, which is people sending a lot of very simple messages in order to farm experience points and move up the leaderboard on most active members, which is a problem in many servers. It looked good on the servers, but again, there were problems behind the scenes, and the staff team were immensely biased against a bunch of individuals who they did not like, but didn't break any rules. They're often banned for little or no reason. There's a group called F10, which we'll get into. Most of them aren't very good people, but in Statistics Assembly, in particular, they really didn't do that much to break any rules, but they would still end up getting an excessive amount of warnings, kicks, and usually bans from the server, because Jip openly expressed his hatred for them. He really hated them. And what he did to them was like over the top, even though they weren't especially like bright shining models of what you want a good person to look like, but Jip was especially biased against them. And the server did have a mob mentality at the time, and it would gang up on anyone when it was opportune, which we'll see later. Another example is in August of 2024, ObviousPath partnered with the server, and the partnership was pretty good for a time until a false allegation came up of him stealing a bow in Minecraft. Yes, you heard that right. A Minecraft bow. There was never any proof for it. It was either a misunderstanding or completely made up. We still don't know, but these false allegations spilled out of control, and ObviousPath got completely unpartnered from the server, even though the partnership was benefiting both servers, and it made everyone hate him, and he got banned. Yeah, it sucks. Although they got over it pretty quickly, because they have short attention spans, being children and all. And speaking of ObviousPath, he did decide to transform his server into another, quote, merging server, calling it Statistical Union, which gathered over 300 members. And he wanted to fix what he had seen go wrong with USOS. He made genuine attempts to improve it and learn from mistakes. However, Jip did not like what he viewed as competition, and while it was a genuine competition, ObviousPath wanted it to be a pretty peaceful competition, but it started off that way, but of course, you know where it goes. It didn't end up that way. And Jip would start sparing the server subtly or otherwise, and he would just keep bringing it up. He would trash it at every opportunity, and it would go back and forth. And eventually, just a bunch of members from Statistics Assembly will just go into Statistical Union and harass ObviousPath and a bunch of his other members. And they would even, like, make fun of their mental health issues and, like, drive wedges between them, which is very sickening behavior. And by the way, some of those people are still staff on other servers today, so just so you know. I'm not going to say the names, but you probably know who they are. And these two servers were engaging in on-off member count battle, which honestly was pretty fun for people involved, even though there was some hostility, to be honest. It was negative, but we tried to make it fun. And they wanted to each be the bigger server in every metric, in member count, in member growth, in XP, in messages sent, every metric you could think of. And because this community is obsessed with numbers, every kind of number, which makes this community really unique, but also kind of bad at the same time. And Jip, like, if you look in the messages he sent in the Statistical Union server, now it's just called ObviousPath server, but every single message is him bragging about his server statistics or trying to tear down the statistics of the ObviousPath community server, then called Statistical Union. And he would call ObviousPath egotistical for marketing his server, which is a step you take when you're growing a server. What Jip did was different. What Jip did is he's putting people down in order to grow his own server, and he's bragging about his own server's statistics, which, as we get into later, he gets insecure about that. And ObviousPath would be the first one to point it out, but people wouldn't agree until later on. And all the time, it really was Jip who was being egotistical, although no one recognized this, obviously, due to the mob culture of Assembly being on his side at the time. Although it would soon turn on him like a pack of hyenas, you know, like the hyenas from Lion King. They're like that. They turn on him when it's not opportune to be on his side anymore. And now, we get into it, how it went downhill for him. Now, Jip's management became pretty bad towards the end, and it was becoming obvious, especially to his own staff, who were DMing him a direct message with suggestions on how he could correct some of that behavior, some of the things going on in the server. And Jip just ignored it, so they got mad and they confronted him, and like all of the staff confronted him at once. They all ganged up on him, and Jip was kind of pressured to handing over ownership to Solar and John Plays Games, who were two other staff members at the time. They were chosen after some deliberation, although Jip, very importantly and critically, he retained technical ownership. So he's no longer the visible owner, but technically speaking, he's still kind of the owner. He's just not calling the shots, but he has all the permissions to control the entire server, pretty much, which is important for later. Under Solar and John's management, there's allowed for a much more chaotic chat than before. Before their management, it was okay. It was better than USOS, but not perfect. But now there was more spam. There was harassment. There were multiple instances. Experience farming became much more common as they kind of lessened restrictions. They made the warning system less restrictive, less punitive. And it makes sense, since Solar's background is a troll who was from USOS, and he was one of the main people being immature on that server the years prior, so that makes sense. On September 11th, 2025, Gypstats covertly took back the server by using ownership permissions he had all along to ban Solar, John, and many of their staff, while staff who used to work under Gypstats returned to their roles which they had previously vacated. What followed were 2 days of chaos on the server, as the vast majority of members did not buy Gypstats' official announcement that he had retaken ownership due to Solar's poor management, although it had been quite poor. Gyp made an announcement explaining why Solar had been removed. While it did have some credible substance, the circumstances made Gyp look selfish and insincere, and Solar won public support over him. While some members left the server in protest, others who criticized Gyp got muted or banned altogether. Gyp would delete forum posts on the matter and such things. You get the picture. Some people even began to compare Gypstats' behavior to that of historical dictatorships. Solar and John wanted Gyp to give up technical ownership and for them to return as owners. Gyp denied this, and so they made an alternative server, once again dubbed the Statistics Horizon, which is based on the lighthouse PNG image off the web of a lighthouse on the horizon. Members were irked by Gyp's actions and began to migrate en masse to this new server, which functions very much like Statistics Assembly, but with different owners and a few small alterations, but for the most part it's the same. Within a few days, the Statistics Assembly had lost over 100 members out of 670, a significant decrease. Gyp saw even his own handpicked staff had begun to question him and lose confidence in his coup. As people called it, a coup, and that's really what it was. So he effectively gave in on September 13, 2025, by archiving the Statistics Assembly and endorsing the Statistics Horizon server in a message. And as you can see, many of the mergers unmerged from Statistics Assembly and either did nothing else after, or many of them came back to the Statistics Horizon. Statistics Assembly is mainly archived today with only a few announcement text channels open. It's kind of a joke now. This episode shows that what happens in such a small community when an owner lets power and narcissism get to their head. And it ended up being quite self-destructive. So much so that someone who had been a relative nobody, that being Solar, had taken Gyp's place as leader of the most drama-filled server in the YouTube account subscriber statistics subculture on Discord. Now let's move on to the Matheus and Graphify. Graphify, also known as Minmax Stacks, Trackerify, and Graphify, and Memorize as well, or some other name by the time this video comes out, is a major statistics creator who has had a number of channels over the years. He is an ample coder and uses that skill to make many visualizations of custom-coded subscriber counts going up and down. Graphify's first channel was terminated by Theo Likey after Theo manipulated him and streamed inappropriate content on his channel. Since then, each new channel he has made afterwards has faced termination due to YouTube thinking it's ban evasion, which it kind of is, but the ban was unfair. Some of his channels were randomly undeleted recently, pointing to the poor taste at YouTube and using AI to dictate pretty much all of their moderation. But anyway, to date, Graphify has faced a lot of indecisiveness. He's been partnered, unpartnered, merged, and unmerged from all three United Service of Stats, that being USOS, Statistics Assembly, and the Statistics Horizon. This added a high degree of instability to each of these, making them all less stable than they already were. They were already pretty unstable anyway. With such a large creator, like he had like 10,000 subscribers on one of his channels, or 5,000, or something big like that, and he's pretty well known for his complicated streams. But last month, Solar ousted him from the Statistics Horizon management team and partnership program, which is what they call their merging. It's functionally the same. For not fully supporting his attacks on a number of predators, which we'll get into, but like Minmax had a couple of reservations about some of these accusations, and Solar didn't like that, so he got completely booted. Graphify has also been manipulated in it was in 2024, but I'm guessing he's still susceptible to this. And this is where we're talking about Matheusify. He's a very small creator, but he has this kind of weird bond to Graphify. And what did he do? He's manipulated his way into having management permissions over Graphify's primary channel. This is in 2024. I'll link a blog to it. It explains it pretty well. This wasn't a problem until Graphify lost access to his channel, and then Matheus was able to threaten it and essentially blackmail. While the situation was eventually resolved, Graphify still kind of trusts Matheus for some reason, which is weird. Like, he hasn't completely banned him and blocked him and whatever. Like, not even initially. Like, that's kind of weird. And, like, if someone's, like, this susceptible to this kind of manipulation, it really shouldn't be allowed on these management teams. Like, I'm just saying. So now let's move on to the MrBeast News server. This is an interesting server to unpack. MrBeast News is a Discord server adjacent to the Statistics YouTube niche, and it follows MrBeast YouTube statistics tracking on Twitter and, in this case, on Discord. The server has gone through a number of owners. The current one is an individual who calls themselves Entropy, which is fitting because the server can be random and disorderly at times. The owner for some time was Silence Rising, who was a pretty bad owner to be fair, who he continues to run a MrBeast themed Discord, Twitter account, and he isn't a particularly nice person if you actually talk to him and you're not in his friend circle, which is funny considering that MrBeast marketing and being positive in marketing is his whole thing. He's routinely used slurs against people he doesn't like multiple times, a lot of times actually, so much so that Solar didn't even like it either, which Solar is not the nicest person either, but if you don't like each other, it goes to show how bad Sun's Rising is. And Sun's really only cordial with his friends on MrBeast News and nasty to pretty much everyone else. And he degrades them with insults, slurs, and so on. It's an example of how supposed leadership in such a small community can go wrong in a different way than chip stats. While the server does have many good statistics trackers, many people there treat people from the statistics community like the plague, despite their longtime owner John being an administrator on one of the biggest statistics servers, Statistics Horizon and earlier Statistics Assembly. I don't really have much else to say about MrBeast News. It's not a terrible server, just some of the staff there are kind of weird. Like, they have these weird phrases. I also think it does a decent job at tracking MrBeast and all, but some of the people, especially Sun is Rising, they're pretty bad human beings, all things considered. Now we're going to shift gears for a minute away from the servers, and we're going to talk about Timscar and Evie. Timscar and Evie are two staff members on Sazabi's ranking community, where they were. The Discord server of Sazabi, a popular statistics YouTube channel. The server currently has over 500 members and is one of the better servers, if I'm being honest. It's decently active, and they actually talk about statistics there and not sexual jokes or just spamming immature things. However, on September 3, 2025, September 25 was a pretty bad month, but Timscar was able to manipulate Sazabi into giving administrator permissions. They had been friends for, I think, 5 years, so this was actually a pretty big betrayal. And I feel pretty bad for Sazabi. Like, having a friend of 5 years betray you in this way is pretty bad. But what they did is, despite them being friends for years, Timscar would use his permissions, along with Evie, who's his accomplice, to nuke the server. So delete every channel and ping everyone. Or I think some channels escaped it for some reason, but most channels were deleted. And over 5, maybe 6 years of history was just wiped away. The server went all the way back to late 2019. Which is the beginning of the community pretty much, and now it was just gone. They were quickly banned from pretty much every stats server, but Timscar was unapologetic. He tried coming back on alt accounts and all that, and they erased 5 years of history in the server. Supposed friends snapping, in this case, isn't all that uncommon, unfortunately, but this is more of an extreme example. And members do face serious mental health issues and crises, which is likely what led to this in some way, shape, or form. We encourage those people that need help to get it and to not nuke servers as an output for their emotion. There were many warning signs that went unnoticed or even completely ignored, as the people showing how Evie, for example, wasn't staff material, because Evie would search for inappropriately named YouTube channels using a bot which could search for YouTube channels while in Discord. And they did this while staff on another server. ObviousPath pointed it out, but people didn't like him at the time, so they ignored it, and Evie was allowed to keep staff on Sazabi's ranking community. Evie also banned ObviousPath for no reason from Sazabi's ranking community, which was reversed, but Evie's staff was still not removed. And by then, it was too late. And unfortunately, bias like this isn't common in many communities, but especially prevalent in the subscriber account statistics community. This high betrayal, as an example, shows how many in the community are willing to ego trip and talk their way into doing terrible things, and how the Discord branch of the stats community can be quite chaotic, even as a supposedly peaceful server like this one, with a pretty good owner, who says Abby. Unfortunately, he trusted the wrong people. Now we're going to be talking about the creeps. I'm going to not talk about all the weird details, but I'm just going to generalize. We don't need to talk about the weird details, we just need to get the point. Some communities can have run-ins with child predators on occasion. However, this community in particular has had more per capita, not to mention frequent incidents involving predatory behavior. In the month of April 2026 alone, there were at least 3 separate incidences with 3 separate people. Very disturbing. It's such a small community, mind you. This is a small community. It's not like a Minecraft community. It's not like a Geometry Dash community. It's like hundreds of times smaller than either of those. Probably thousands of times smaller. Much smaller. And in 2022, for example, a YouTuber called Mr. Herobrine underscore 15, which is pretty much a Mr. Beast knockoff in every way, was exposed by a small channel, He Looks Fat, for having a suggestive conversation with a young child while he was nearly an adult himself. He was 17. This child was like 11, 12, 13-ish. Mr. Herobrine would attempt to censor this information by issuing copyright claims against He Looks Fat's video, a similar tactic that IvanIO employed to remove critical content of him. Unfortunately, it's a recurring event, and we've seen this happen multiple times. And while Mr. Herobrine did get a lot of flack for this, he's not exactly 100% in the community. He's kind of adjacent to the community, like the Mr. Beast news people. And so, for a large part, he's gone unpunished, unfortunately. Moving up to March 2026, a well-known creator of a subscriber tracking bot called Communitrix, named Charlie Ashford, who gave his real name in the username, so we're using his real name. It was put on full display as Solar loudly publicized that he had been grooming a user that goes by Amethyst, like The Rock, Amethyst, and there's a large age gap between them. Charlie was 20, nearly 21. Amethyst was who knows how young, definitely under 18. And the conversation was very suggestive. Charlie was trying to get her like Instagram photos and stuff, and he's sending pictures of himself. And obviously this is pretty self-explanatory how it's bad. But Charlie had been doing things like this for years. Like he said the M-word once on a server, and people just ignored it for some reason. Even though ObviousPath showed people the evidence, Charlie just kind of shrugged it off, and people hated ObviousPath at the time, so they kind of focused on that. But evidence had been piling up. Charlie had done stuff like this in the past, and finally the dam broke, and after 2 years of being unnoticed, everyone turned on him, and he has completely left the community. All of the infrastructure he made, digital infrastructure like websites for tracking subscriber counts, websites for downloading data of subscriber and view counts, things like that, it all got wiped away. Because in such a small community, when you have such a bad person like this, it can all disappear really quickly. Despite making a video of a ridiculous length of 6 hours, Solar did admit how much Charlie's questionable activity had been ignored in 2024 and 2025, like I said, due to bias and distractions. As I said, he said the N-word hard R, which is not cool at all. And it was brushed aside for some reason, because I think it was in the F10 server, and F10 ignored it. I wonder why. But they were busy harassing ObviousPath, who was just marketing the server to grow it authentically. And despite OP trying to make the incident known, people ignored it due to convenience, which is a thing that happens a lot, really, unfortunately. And Charlie was in control of one of the very few statistics websites that could easily provide historical subscriber data going years and years back. And now that Social Blade had an update, if you're in a community, you know that Social Blade had an update that made it a lot harder to get data from it. These were all lost as he was exposed as a creep, and reminding people of how unstable it can be. And then, to continue this, Hunting Stats, who's from the Statistics Horizon, he decided to dox Charlie. Charlie did leak his own images, but Hunting Stats just shared them like everywhere. He sent it in every chat. I think even a lot of DMs. Even I got a DM, even though I'm not that active anymore. And leaking a picture from his personal social media account, Charlie with other people. I think it was, you got like a, like a personal Instagram page. It looked like that. I'm not going to show it. But people thought this was justified because Charlie gave out his real name. That's a silly argument. You shouldn't dox someone just because their name is on their on their description or whatever. Doxing is illegal. You can't do that. Even if they leak their face, even if they leak their name, you can't dox them. And this happened without Charlie's consent. Despite him being morally corrupt, there's no excuse to break the law. Hunting Stats, I don't know what you were thinking. As expected of the Stats Horizon, however, the image was paraded around and sent in every channel possible as part of their shame ritual, which they practice like monthly. It's like almost like a religion, how often they practice it and how committed they are to practicing it. When someone is rightfully or wrongfully ganged up on by the chat hyena pack. We'll touch on this even more later. But overview a few other degenerates who've had virtual sexual conversations. And other so-called role-playing conversation in DM. There's Zayden, Galvin, and Nia Stats, also known as Mix Axern. They were called Mix Axern when I first started. Changed names a few times. And Chalky Statistics. The latter two were quite large creators. The other ones were lesser known. And pretty much all of these have people quit statistics by now for one reason or another, mainly because of the drama. Not all of them, though. I know Stats 100, which is one of these channels, is still up and acting like nothing's happening. The channel just stream subscriber counts. And make things worse, many of these people were friends and they were like buddies. They were in group chats and servers for years and years on end. And I hate to compare this to Jeffrey Epstein, but yeah, it just seemed like there's a bit of a ring going on here, and it was not good. And the exact extent to which they groom people is not well known, but we know it did happen a little bit. And like, if you're considering joining this community, just watch out for that, especially if you're younger. I mean, like, if you're younger, I recommend you don't go on the Discord at all, and just stick to YouTube. And even if you like do stick to YouTube, like a couple channels, like the ones I mentioned in the beginning, are the best ones. And after that, you have to be very, very careful, because there are people like that. Like someone who might look like a good creator might really be a creep behind the scenes. And now, the point of this section is not the disturbing details. Solar's made videos on those, and while his videos are kind of weird, you could trust those. If you really want to see the disturbing details, he puts all of them out there, which you probably shouldn't, because there's children in the audience, but I'll talk about that later. The subscriber count community is not a big community. Solar only has 200 subscribers. SuperStats has 5,000. Graphify has had a few thousand between his channels. Largest channel has only taken a few thousand views per day. It's a small community. Yeah, there's been over a dozen events like this in the last couple months alone. Not just unusual for a community, but highly disturbing. With many immature people, desperate people, and children in the community, it's like a volcano waiting to blow up. The thing is, most of this occurs on Discord, so we advise outsiders, as I said, to avoid that part of the community. Unless you're probably over 18, you could probably handle it, but still, they might still try to grim you, like even if, you know. So, watch out if you're on the Discord part of the community. There's a couple servers that are better. I recommend Statsable server, YT Battles server, and Zazabi server. Beyond that, most of them are pretty bad. Now to wrap things up, let's summarize this here. This is this community, which focuses on the fluctuations of subscriber counts of YouTube channels, not math statistics, they're not mathematicians. It is a community that is relatively small in terms of internet subcultures. While stimulating nice on the surface, is perhaps the most degenerate subculture that I've come across on the internet, especially under the surface. There's other bad things out there, but this one really takes the cake. There have been channel hackings, terminations, doxing, harassment, cybercrime threats, minority hatred, hypocrisy, greed, dictator complexes, savior complexes, apathy, trolls, server nuking, predatory behavior many times, and countless dramas behind the scenes. Evidence of a much darker side hiding just below the surface. This community has been on the decline since at least 2024, when MrBeast passed T-Series as the #1 YouTube channel, a much anticipated event which was quite fun, I have to admit, at the time. Everyone enjoyed it. But from there, the amount of obvious milestones to anticipate, which is what kept the community going before, began to fall through people's fingers. There's no obvious milestone for MrBeast to reach, even beyond 500 million, which we'll reach soon. Beyond that, what's next? 600 million? 700 million? It's just not the same. Niche has become repetitive, boring, creators are leaving, content is becoming slop, and people are becoming tired of it. The niche is dying despite Solar's best wishes, and will continue down a path of degeneracy, probably. To outside or inside viewers, we suggest you either stick to the surface level, Statsable supports, Sazabi's 360-degree videos, things like that, or leave the entire community for your own good, as things are likely to not change. But we do suggest you make the best of it if you intend to stay. Now, thanks for watching today's video. We had a couple people help us out, and we appreciate them greatly. Be sure to look at our credits, subscribe to the people, watch the videos. We have all our sources in the description. And if this video gets taken down, it will be put in other places, and I will attempt to get it back up if it gets taken down due to copyright, which would just be proving my point, honestly, if they hit enough to take down the copyright, but that's besides the point. Regardless, thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a great summer.